Today's conversation is sponsored by the Billy Keels Advisory Program. If you want to learn more about how to make your 9 to 5 optional, just go to billykeels.com/advising. Once again, that's billykeels.com/advising.
You're listening to the Going Long podcast, the #1 podcast for the strategies, tactics, and actions high wage earners need for living an intentionally designed life of wealth and resilience.
Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident in creating a wealthy life and one that's full of resilience. I'm your host, Billy Keels. And you know what? I just want to say thank you so much for continuing to invest your time with us, coming back, especially listening to the solo episodes, listening to our interviews with our special guests as they come on. And also, too, most importantly, for leaving your honest written reviews as well as ratings. It means the world to us. And for those of you who are consistently taking action and really sharing and tagging us on LinkedIn, on Instagram, thank you so much. And it helps to continue to take the Going Long podcast as we continue to evolve and help to make everyone much wealthier in terms of the way that you live in your life, and also much more resilient. Can't thank you enough. So continue to tag us across LinkedIn, across Instagram, and make sure you leave your honest written reviews. And for those of you who are just like getting here and you're like, wow, I want to go in and listen to some more of the episodes from the previous episodes, you can do that. Just go to billykeels.com/podcast and you can find every single episode we've ever done. Once again, that's billykeels.com/podcast. You can find the audio version, the video version. You can find the transcripts. It's a great place to go. Plus, there's a lot of extra information once you get to billykeels.com. Go check it out. So listen, back for another one of the solo episodes. And I want to continue to share some things because I think most of you know already, I spent 26 years in corporate. I was a high paid executive. I ran a $100 million business across Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and was able to close large 8-figure deals. Did that in different country, different language. I did that here in Spain. And so it's pretty special when you're closing $25 million and it's a language that you learned when you were in your 30s, and being able to lead teams of people, different cultural backgrounds, different linguistic, native language, and stuff like that. And well, it's just one of those things that is, makes me feel very, very fortunate to have lived the life that I've lived so far. And at the same time, I kind of want to share, like, those are some of the good things, but there are also things that, haven't quite honestly gone so well. And some things that I've now reflected on that I want to share with you. And one of the ways that I want to do that is through these solo episodes. And really, one of the things that I think is critical for you to understand is, even though you are a high paid executive, you are working in a growth industry. Like I was working in software sales or high tech in general. I was in hardware and I was in software. And even before, when I was working and traveling initially, by the time I was 26, I'd worked and traveled to about 58 different countries, did it at a 5-star level. And that was a very abundant time in the world. Things have changed a little bit since then. But it's very easy to feel like your company is like always the first thing because they're providing the lifestyle, the benefits, all that stuff. But the reality is your company can wait. The thing that can't wait is your life. Like, it just can't wait because it's really hard to get it back. So one of the things that happened to me, and just sharing a little bit, and if you've not heard it before, like I grew up, and the way that I grew up was, go out, get a job, work hard, work overtime, get out there, make sure that you're demonstrating that you're, 3, 4, 5 times better than everybody else, work to get the raise, get the recognition, move up the corporate ladder. Like, I got the 2 college degrees. Once I got that, parlayed those into getting great jobs, living in Europe over the last 2 decades, having now traveled to 87 different countries in my lifetime. As I mentioned before, managed a $100 million business across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And having done a number of things, my goal was to continue to move up the corporate ladder. Like while I was in corporate early on, like it was providing a lifestyle that I never had when I was growing up. My kids were happy and things were going well. We were living a really charmed life. And as I moved up the corporate ladder, it was the promotions that I was focusing on. I wanted to make sure that I was in the top talent, which I got to the top talent multiple times, which was really, really cool. I was on the fast track, the Catalyst program that they called it, in my last career and before I was Rookie of the Year. So I got a lot of different accolades because I was constantly working on how do I move up higher, have more control. And I was even this thing that what some people call it President's Club, Winner Circle. You go in there multiple times. It was even in the top 1% of sellers for a company that had 25, 30,000 sellers. So to be in the top 1% was really, really cool. But anyway, I'm only telling you that because I understand what it's like to like drink the Kool-Aid, because I was drinking the Kool-Aid from the time I was a little kid through getting the professional roles. And so I had this tendency to put my company goals first because, well, that was the thing that was providing the life and the lifestyle that I was leading. Once I started getting inside, like my big goal was I wanted to become, and I used to tell people, like, I'm going to be the CEO of a big company, until I was working in a big company. And I realized like that was such a far, like way away. Like one of my first jobs right out of college, I was working directly with lots of Fortune 500 CEOs, people like John Chambers, Jack Nasser, Ken Chenault, Michael Dell, even people like Bill Gates, like had interactions with them. And so I thought it was really easy to get to them. But then when I started working at these big companies, I realized, wow, they're really far away. You got to do a lot to get there. And I started asking internal questions like, do I really want to do things? Because as I got closer and closer, I was like, okay, well, maybe I don't want to be the CEO. I'll just be a regional CEO, until I started getting even closer contact with them, because I realized, wow, they're up super early, but already on planes, trains, automobiles. They have their offices that are managing their lives. And sometimes they don't even know where they're going to be the next day or 2 days after, because constant changes in their schedule. So I realized, like, internally, like, is this what I really want to do for my life? Do I really want to do that? Do I want to be away from home all the time? Because, my thing is I wanted to be a very present dad and spouse and all that other kind of stuff. And so that was a big thing for me. So I felt internally like there was this conflict that was going on. And I started reevaluating, like, you know what? If I can only go up, 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 up in the organization, in these big organizations, like as soon as you get to the top, like one of two things happens. Either they move you somewhere, or they cut you down and kick you out. So there's not really anything. And the more that you move up the organization, there's less people. So the competitions are more fierce. The alliances are stronger. So if you're on the wrong side, it's really easy to kind of get cut out of things. And I didn't really want to be in that, like, go as high as you go kind of syndrome. Like I didn't want to live like that. So I realized that I wasn't willing to do what needed to be done to move up to either a regional CEO, to a global CEO, any of that kind of stuff. And when I missed the special event, which I've talked about before in my family life, I realized that missing a birthday party for a 3-year-old, which maybe seems strange to you, but for me, it was a big deal. I realized that I had to, like, I'd gotten things out of whack. My company's priorities went ahead of my own life priorities. And I say that from a place of humility, because I recognize that there are some roles where you don't have a choice. Like you have to be on the front line. You have to go. That wasn't my case. And for a lot of you that are high wage earners, you're in sales, you're an executive, you think that it has to be like the frontline worker at a restaurant or something like that. And it's not the same, but we just put that in our minds. You put that in your mind because of the high wage that you're receiving, because of the fact that you want to move up the ladder faster. And I'm saying this because I lived it. I'm not making this up. Like, and if I'm talking to you and you're hearing it, you understand what I'm talking about. You could say yes to yourself internally. Yeah, you get it. Trust me, I know you get it, because we've been there, done that, which is also why I'm sharing it with you, that your company's priorities, yes, they can wait. And I'm going to tell you why in just a second, but your life can't. So when I missed that event, I sat down and I built a plan. This was back in 2012. I put that plan together. It was a 5-year plan. And I wanted to get to a point where I just knew that I did not have to depend 100% on my job, that I could start to put my life priorities, my family priorities ahead of other things. So I knew that I had to do something. I knew that I saw, the Warren Buffett thing that said you got to make money in your sleep. If not, you're always going to be working. And so for me, I chose real assets, specifically real estate. And yes, even though I was living in Europe, I decided to do it long distance back in the United States, and it worked. It started working. It wasn't perfect, but it started working. It was aligning to the 5-year plan that I had, that I sat down and wrote in 2012. Maybe I'll talk to you about more detail about that in another episode. But I wanted to grow my top line, meaning I wanted to create more revenue, because I knew that revenue was going to set me free. As a high wage earner, I also had another problem. I was getting crushed in taxes. because I made a lot of money. I was taking very little risk because I was working for somebody else and I was getting crushed. So I tried to figure out how I could also be able to keep more of those tax dollars if it was a way, because as someone who was an employee, I wasn't able to take a lot of the benefits from real estate that I was hearing so much about because it just kind of sat in the real estate. It didn't go anywhere. But that's a whole different topic. Won't really get into that. But I put my plan to figure out how could I maximize the amount of money that I was bringing in, because I knew that that would set me free. It helped to unlock a mental anguish that I was having with the job. And so as I got into real estate, I had to fight against a really super conservative nature that I had, because I thought, well, either keep the money in the bank because that's the thing that looks good, or put it in something that is, a CD or a mutual fund or something like that. I had to go through that whole different mindset, which I'm sure will be for another episode. But I overcame that, right? And so I spent almost a decade. I got started really late in my late 30s investing in real estate and investing in other things. I got into real estate. I got into other hard assets, ATM machines. I got into the oil and gas sector. I got into a number of different things. Some of them worked really, really well. Some of them didn't work so well. We can talk about more of that in probably future episodes. But the fact of the matter is I got started. And the thing is in my late 30s, by the time I was 48 years old, I was out of corporate life. The last 4 years, so like let's say from 43 to 48, like I was going into my job because I wanted to, not because I needed to. I finally got to a point where I started shifting from corporate priorities to my life priorities, to my family's priorities. And so the thing is that's what helped me more importantly realize it wasn't just the fact that I was out of corporate life at 48. Like I kept going from late 43 to 48 years old because I wanted to, because I was surrounded by really smart people. I had great benefits. I was making what I considered to be a lot of money for using very little effort, because I understood how things worked. I understood how the corporate machine worked, how the corporate rat race worked. And I changed from the company's priorities to my life priorities. And the thing that I really took away from that was, if I put my life priorities first and I understand what the outcomes that they need in my corporate role is, I can actually get the best of both worlds. And that's what was happening the last 4 years. And more importantly, I realized that a lot of the skill set that I had, that same skill set could be used, and it's being used every single day today, right? And building my own business, having my own life priorities, leading things today, leading my life. So my life priorities, not someone else's, are leading the way I'm living my life. Along the way, I had people that were helping me. I had people that were coaches, that were advisors, and it's also one of the things that I realized can be an accelerator. Maybe you're listening to this or you're watching this and you're in your late 20s and you're in these high stress roles. You're already, making big money, and you already have this like nervousness, like, hey, listen, I don't want to do this forever, but you don't want to ask your colleagues. You don't want to talk to your mom and dad about it. You don't want to talk to somebody that will maybe have no experience, hasn't done it before. You really want somebody that has been there, done that can help guide you, be the person that holds the mirror up in front of you, hopes to hold you accountable. Like if any of this stuff resonates with you, it's one of the things I'm doing with the advisory services, Billy Keels Advisory Services. You can find out more about that if you want to go to billykeels.com/advising. You can find out about the high value, high touch one-on-one services that I'm offering. And once again, go to billykeels.com/advising. And hopefully this, like my experience of going through and recognizing early on that I thought it was the corporate priorities that were important, that can wait. Right? It can wait. Provide the outcomes, provide the results that your company needs you to provide. And at the same time, build your own life. Put your own life priorities and put them sooner in front of the corporate life. Both can coexist together. It just took me a long time to get there. It took me 22 years to realize they could both get there together. And I enjoyed the last 4 years in the way the balance worked. And my employer did as well, because I was achieving my numbers. I was in top talent program. I was going to Hawaii. And so it can coexist together. Trust me, I've been there and done that. So if you want to find out more about it, billykeels.com/advising. And hopefully this has helped you understand a little bit more about why your life can't wait, but your company, well, you can put it in its right perspective. So share today's episode. Make sure you're talking about it, putting it into practice. Heck, write me something if you want. You can also join our newsletter. You can find out more about the newsletter. Just go to billykeels.com as well. And while you're sharing today's conversation, we're getting in touch. I'm going to be here preparing the next conversation or solo episode. So until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much. Freedom! Today's conversation was sponsored by the Billy Keels Advisory Program. If you're looking to make your 9-to-5 optional and need some help, just go to billykeels.com/advising. Once again, that's billykeels.com/advising.